I thought this book might be a standard business networking, use other people to get ahead book, and I was afraid that I would not like it. In fact, though, it was something different, and I loved it. So here's my review of Benjamin Hardy's Who, Not How, and I might touch on some of his other books as well. So Benjamin Hardy he has a master's degree in psychology or human resources or something in that area. I'm not sure. He talks about it in his books. And he's very focused on personal success, like finding meaning in our lives and productivity. And a lot of his advice tends to be in the form of kind of mental hacks, things that you change about how you think about the world in order to get better results. And that is the sort of book that Who Not How turned out to be. I was afraid that it would be a networking book. I was afraid that it would be like a full-length explanation that is not what you know, it's who you know. For people like myself who are maybe more academically inclined and knowledge workers, the idea that you get ahead by using other people is really disgusting. And it's not, I don't want to succeed if you have to do it that way. And in professional life, in the workplace, you definitely see people who follow that model. The rainmakers, the book of business people who really get ahead by schmoozing people and signing up new clients. And businesses need that. Like, we need sales, we need networking. I just don't want to spend my life doing that. But what Benjamin Hardy talks about in Who Not How is very different. He shares an idea that's important for anyone in a position of leadership. If you have people reporting to you at work or in a volunteer organization or wherever else, this is a good principle. What he's saying essentially is that when you find yourself with new work to do, with a project that you want to accomplish, instead of focusing on how do I do this and breaking it down into steps for yourself to execute, you should think, who's the right person to do this? And he gave an example of a businessman who, I forget what he was doing. Maybe he was shipping products or something. And he was staying up all night doing these crazy hours to ship his product. And then at some point, he found that one of his lower paid workers could do that for him. So at a cost of $15 an hour or something, he now had his life back. And that's kind of what Benjamin Hardy is talking about here. That at work, for example, say you have a big project, I'd like to create this product and present it to our clients. Instead of getting to work outlining what the product would look like, first focus on who in your organization is best able to create that product, and then work on getting that person on board and getting them to do it. The reality is the best person to do something is almost never going to be you. If you're an egomaniac and a manager, you might think that you're the best at everything, but at least at an intellectual level, we know that's not true. And if you are the best person in your organization, maybe what you need to do is hire someone else or contract out with someone else. Since reading this book, I've definitely used that principle. In fact, I was listening to his book in audio form on the ride into work one day, and I had 2 new projects at work that morning that I wanted to do. And because I was reading the book, I thought, wait a second, who could do this? And I delegated both of them off to other people who were happy to do it and did a reasonably good job. So that was immediate payoff from the book. Because of that, I feel like this is a book I should probably read regularly just to remind myself of, how I can use my time better by involving other people. Part of this, of course, is connecting with the right people, but I don't remember the book focusing very much on networking, actually. And that's kind of an intuitive thing that anyone can figure out as well. Okay, so a little more about Ben Hardy. The first book of his that I read was Willpower Doesn't Work. I've actually probably read that, I would say, 4 or 5 times. And it's about how instead of relying on your willpower to get your tasks, all of the social science today says you should do environmental things to help you succeed. So I don't think he mentioned this in the book, but famously Google in their cafeteria found that maybe employees were eating in unhealthy ways. So they took the unhealthy food, desserts, candy, whatever, and just made them a little bit harder to reach in the cafeteria. And as a result, consumption of those goods went way down. There are times when we're just on the edge of indulging in something unhealthy or not. And so if we structure our environment so that it's harder to do those things, then our behavior improves. And Ben Hardy is a fan of doing those behavioral, psychological things on ourselves to make sure that we don't have to just rely on pure grit, pure willpower. which will sometimes fail us. One issue, I don't remember where he comes down on this. There's a great book on willpower by Ray Baumeister, which I've also read a few times. I think it's just called Willpower. And Baumeister is of the school of thought that willpower is a resource that can get depleted. Like you have X amount of willpower per day, and it could vary by person, but what doesn't vary is by the end of the day, you've used up your willpower. So that's why people might engage in more self-destructive behavior in the evenings at night, for example. There are other authors, though, and I think the trend in thinking today is that that's not quite right. The willpower doesn't get depleted like that, that maybe we get more if we use more, and so on. But you don't have to resolve that puzzle. Instead, you can just follow Ben Hardy's advice here and not rely wholly on willpower. There are at least 2 other books by Hardy that I've read, but I think you get the idea. And I believe of his books, Who Not How is probably the most practical and useful one for me. Even if you're not in a position of leadership, even if you're, what could you be? You could be an independent contractor and a writer, a freelance writer. So, you're posting jobs online and writing articles or books for people. So that would seem like something where everything's up to you, but it's not. He would say, well, when it comes time to edit your manuscript, are you really the right person for that, or should you hire someone else to do that? And what about outlining it? Is there someone else who could do that for you? Like, what parts of the process could you outsource to someone who would actually do it better and ultimately save you money? So, worth a read, Who Not How by Benjamin Hardy. That was one of the books I rated as excellent this year.